Hi everyone, Janie here. Welcome back to my garden. It is early to mid-January here in Northern California, and that means it is rose month. January is my month to take care of roses. There's a couple things that I plan or that I always have in my mind that I need to take care of for my roses in January. And that is, number one, I need to make sure that I purchase and plant my bare root roses if I am planning on planting any roses. I planted so many roses last year, so I'm not really planning on planting any roses this year. I'm going to wait for all of these to get established. But just know that now's the time to start thinking about purchasing your bare root roses. And I talk about this a lot. Bare root is always better than buying a plant. Yes, it's more fun to buy a plant so you can see the color of the rose, but trust me, bare root is going to get established so much better. The next thing I do during rose month is I focus on defoliating my roses. We don't get that cold here in Northern California, zone 9, and the roses really need a chance to go to sleep before they start again. They need to go into their dormant phase so that they can wake up and they can be nice and strong and healthy and have lots of energy to bloom the next season. So you can see here, this iceberg standard rose still has almost all of its foliage on it, and it's even still blooming a little bit. So I really have to make sure that my roses actually go to sleep. I live in zone 9, and so this is a very common thing for us. It might even be a common thing for zone 8 and maybe even zone 7. It really just depends on how cold your winter has been. Number 3 on my list of tasks that I have to do for rose month is I have to prune my roses. And you can see that this iceberg rose has gotten a little spindly, gotten a little out of control. I have to cut it back and train it hard just so that I know that it can grow the way I want it to grow in the shape that I want it to grow. I also have some climbing roses that I'm going to prune today, and those are really important to prune correctly so that you can get the maximum amount of blooms that you can get. Now, I have a lot of roses here. I'm not expecting to do all of these today. My goal is to get 4 of my roses done today, and so I think I can accomplish that. Then finally, the last thing that's on my list of things that I need to do for my roses in January is I need to train them. So you can't see very well. I'll put a shot in. This standard rose is falling back, as is its partner over on the other side, and I need to stake it. I need to make sure that it's growing properly. I have climbing roses that I'm trying to train up and over my office, and so I need to train those appropriately, and I just need to make sure that my roses are growing in the direction that I want them to grow. Now is the time to do it, because after I've defoliated and pruned everything, I can really see the structure of the rose. So I really focus on those 4 things during my rose month. Again, January is my rose month for zone 9. A good rule of thumb is January is for zone 9 and 10, and February is for zone 8, and then March is for zones 5 through 7. So check with your local garden center to confirm when your rose month is, but that's a good guideline, at least to get you started. So here in my Gorilla Cart are the tools that I'm using for today. So first of all, I want to say I could not find my leather gauntlet gloves, my rose pruning gloves. I know I have them, I just cannot find them. I cannot find them anywhere. So I just went ahead and I grabbed my women's work gloves. They're the arm saver gloves. So these are at least going to protect my arms, but they are fabric. And so the thorns will still, if you have really sharp thorns, they're still going to go through this material. So look for some leather gauntlet gloves, and that should really help you protect your arms. Then I have, well, over here, I have my pruners. These are just some sharp bypass pruners that I actually cleaned with my alcohol spray. This just has isopropyl alcohol in it, and this is just going to disinfect all of my tools in between each rose that I pruned today. And so I just spray them. Let me show you my loppers. Here's my loppers right here. These loppers I'm just going to use for the big stems that need a little bit more oomph than my pruners can give it. But I'm just going to spray them like that. Flip them over and spray them like that. And now they're clean. And now I know if one of my roses has any type of fungus or bacteria or black spot or anything like that, I'm not going to transfer it to the next rose that I prune. I also have my automatic pruners. not necessary, but I just love these so much. I would want to bring them all the time whenever I do any pruning projects. And then I do have some twine, and this is for my climbing roses. I have 2 climbing roses over on my office, and this is just if I want to train them up in a certain way. This is what I'm going to use because this is biodegradable and I think it looks pretty. So the roses that I'm going to prune today, I'm going to take care of my 2 standards. I have 2 iceberg standards on either side of my greenhouse right here, and you might notice that they don't look the same at all. And that's just been a joke that Jason and I have had. He was being very sweet and he came out and he did a mid-season prune on this standard over here, and he did a very good job. But for some reason he decided to leave that one. He thought that that one looked okay, and you can see the difference. So that rose wasn't pruned. I mean, it was dead-headed, but it wasn't significantly pruned mid-season last year, and that rose was. So you can see big difference. So probably my main goal for today is to get these 2 roses looking similar. And then coming over here behind my office, this rose right here is a Gertrude Jekyll rose, named after the wonderful Gertrude Jekyll. If you're not familiar with her, do some research. She is a gardener from England. She was an artist turned gardener. She's absolutely wonderful. She is a fabulous heroine in the gardening world, and this was one of the roses that I had to have just because it's named after her. It's a beautiful pink rose. It is incredibly thorny. So I'm a little nervous about pruning this rose, but it should be okay. She's growing in a pretty, I like the way she's growing. You can see she's got a couple main stems already, which is really nice. So it shouldn't be too hard to prune her. Now she is growing up this steel kind of framework on the back of my office. This was here when we moved in. I have no idea what it's for. I have a feeling that they meant to extend it out a little further and then didn't. I am planning to put some covers on top so that I can have some shelter over my potting area, but for now I am just having Gertrude Jekyll rose grow on it, and then over here on this side I have a pink lemonade honeysuckle growing up that side. And then finally the last rose that I'm going to tackle today is this one on the front of my office, and this one is Crown Princess Margaretta. It is a beautiful peachy David Austin rose. It's absolutely gorgeous when it's blooming. This one and Gertrude Jekyll are both climbing roses. This one I'm a little bit more nervous because you can see she's a little bushier and a little kind of all over the place, and so I got to figure out how I can train her. I want this rose to come up and over my office right there. And so that's kind of what I'm working towards. So for climbing roses, you really want to focus on horizontal growth because the blooms are going to come from your canes that are bending horizontally as opposed to the canes that are going straight up. And so I'm kind of stuck in a tough spot here because I want them to grow up the sides of the office right here, and then I'll start training them horizontally. So I just have to be patient. I have to get them up there, and then as they grow horizontally, I'm going to have a whole bunch of blooms up here, which should be absolutely beautiful. But I have to be very, very careful about how I train them and prune them. So there are a ton of really great rose pruning videos on YouTube. I would encourage you to go check out Jason at Fraser Valley Rose Farm. He is so clear and so concise, and he doesn't overcomplicate it, which I think happens a lot with rose pruning. Like I know myself, when I try and keep it straight in my mind, I often get overwhelmed because there are so many specific ways that you can do it and what to do and what not to do. And really when it comes down to it, it's not that big of a deal. Like you're not going to mess it up. Your rose is going to bloom the next season. Like just don't not prune it, I think is the most important thing. So check out Jason at Fraser Valley Rose Farm. He is great. He has a fantastic YouTube channel and he knows absolutely everything there is to know about roses. Okay, I'm going to get started with this iceberg standard right here. I think the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to take off some of this mass of this rose because I'm not going to need any of it. And it'll just make it that much easier to defoliate and to really get in there and find where the stems are that I want to keep and where the stems are that I want to take off. Okay, that feels so much better. It's a little bit more manageable. One thing I am noticing is that this is going way back. So what I want to do before I start shaping it, because what I'm doing is I'm just trying to make sure that it's even all directions, and I can't really tell with how far this rose is leaning back. So I think I'm going to stake it first, and then I can get a better idea or a better look at what I'm dealing with and exactly where I want to prune. So it's kind of a bummer that I have to put this stake right in front of the standard, but that's the direction that it's leaning. That's the direction that it's leaning, and so I really want to correct this year. I think that the soil here is just very, very compacted clay, so it's having a hard time being in. And so, Monty, okay. Anyway, oh boy, you just need attention, don't you? So I think that the stake was too close to the rose before, and it was just falling over with the root ball. So I think it's the whole root ball that's the problem, which is a bummer, but I also don't want to dig it up and replant it. So I'm just going to try this, see how it does. I'm using this green tape right here. Monty is helping, quote, helping. Okay, let me see if that's straight. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, that feels a lot better. It's still annoying that I have to put that stake right in front. I'll probably paint it black. But I just don't see any other way to get that straight. And then over here, I'm going to have to do the same thing to that one right there. That's okay. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to defoliate. I'm going to take off all the leaves so that I can really get a good look at the canes and see what I want to prune off and what I want to save. Okay, that looks a lot better, more like a rose that you would expect to see in January. And I do have to say, some Januaries, we do see our roses look like this, and they do lose all their leaves because it's been cold enough or we've had enough wind. But this year, we've had a lot of rain, but it was very, very mild, so it was no big deal. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off any dead or diseased branches. I don't see anything diseased, but I do see some dead kind of nubs that I want to clean up. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to get anything that's crossing. And so I can see this one right here is going straight up in the middle of my rose, kind of bumping into everything. So I'm going to take this one off. This one's going straight up into this one. And then any thin, kind of spindly ones like this one, I'm going to go ahead and take off as well. All right, I am all done with this rose. I'm happy with how it's pruned. I think it's going to be shaped really nicely next season, and I'm especially happy about how I'm staking it because now it's facing upright, which is exactly what I needed. The one thing that before I move on to the next rose, I want to bring your attention to underneath and the mess that I have down here. This is a whole bunch of new leaves that I just cut off, old leaves that had fallen off, and a whole bunch of petals. And it's really important to clean all of this stuff up before the next season because any of this stuff can be harboring funguses, bacteria, diseases that can infect the rose for the next season. So you want to make sure you clean all this up. Do not leave anything, absolutely anything that can harbor over disease for next year. Okay, so I'm all done with my standard roses. They look really good. Now I'm moving on to my climbers, which are a bit different, but then also very similar. I am going to make sure that I take off all of the foliage. Instead of pruning into a shape, into a round ball shape, for these, I'm going to be focusing on what's called main canes. And those are the main stems that I am going to expect lateral canes to come off of, which are going to flower. Now, again, when you deal with a climbing rose, you really want to focus on horizontal growth, but you can see I just planted these last year, and I'm still focusing on the vertical growth just to get up to the top of where I'm training them on. But once they start going, once these main canes right here start moving horizontally, I'm going to get so many blooms. That's why a lot of times you see climbing roses with so many blooms on top and not as much down here, and that's simply because it's the horizontal growth that the blooms are coming off of. So I have a lot of scrubbiness down here at the bottom that I'm going to be cleaning up, but I don't want to clean up too much because I still want some of these to grow into my future main canes in subsequent years. So I think I'm gonna just kind of go through and prune out the smallest ones, the diseased ones, take off all of the foliage, and then end up with maybe like 6 or 8 main canes up here growing up this way. So I actually didn't use these at all for the standard roses, so I don't have to clean those. But my pruners I did use, and I do need to clean. Okay, sorry about the shadows. The sun is in just the worst spot right now. But the last rose I have to prune today, well, that's on my list to prune today, is Crown Princess Margareta. And it's not that she needs the most work, it's that she has the most kind of fluff going on at the bottom down here. She does have a couple good main canes that I'm going to be trimming, or not trimming, I'm going to be leaving those, but everything else I kind of need to clean up so that I can train her to go up and over. So I'm going to get started down here. There's a lot that I can kind of prune off and get out of the way. It's really interesting. This rose has multiple points where it's been damaged. Can you see that right there? I wonder why. All right, I am finally all done with the roses that I had on my list to prune today. I still have a lot more roses to prune, but these were the hardest ones. These were the standards and the climbers. The rest are really just shrubs, and that will be pretty easy and pretty straightforward. So let me clean up a little bit, and then I'll give you all a look around at the final product. Okay, so let's get started with back here. I have my two standard iceberg roses here, and they look even. They look the same size, and they should grow at the same rate now this year, which is great. And Jason knows now not to prune one and not the other. But I'm still very appreciative that he came out and did it. So anyway, they look really good. They're staked up, so now they're straight, upright. Again, I think it's the soil in here. We have one bad rainstorm, and then the whole root ball just kind of falls over, just because I don't think that the roots have spread out into the native soil yet because it's so compacted. So hopefully this is the year that it'll start looking a lot better. You can see I have my beautiful breath of heaven right there, and my not so beautiful breath of heaven right there, and this is the second one. I will not be replacing this one. I'm just going to do something else, and I'm probably going to move the other one too. This is whatever's going on back here. Well, we know what's going on back here. I think that there's even rocks under here, based on the photos that I found. So I'm not even going to try for the breath of heaven anymore. I'm going to have to try something else that can handle whatever it is underneath my soil back here from the previous owners. So anyways, these are done, and I'm happy with how they look. Then coming over here, I have my Gertrude Jekyll, and you can see I have about 4 main canes climbing up this metal frame right here. I have a couple other canes down here that will follow suit in the upcoming years. With all the foliage off, you can really see how thorny it is. Look at that. Oh, it is not a fun rose to prune, but it's so beautiful. To me, it's worth it. And then finally, the very last one is my Crown Princess Margaretta. And this one I really took down. I took it down just to 4 canes, but one of the canes, it got caught on my jacket and I didn't realize it, and I ripped it off. So I think this one might be getting a little too much water. I might back off on the water a little bit, but I did put in these eye hooks. I think these will do a much better job than that metal trellis. I think that was part of the problem why this rose had so much damage, because that trellis kept moving back and forth, on stormy days, and then it would cause the rose to go back and forth, and it had so much junk. It had so much bulk down here that all the stems were rubbing on each other, and it just wasn't pruned healthy last year. So I think that this is a lot better, and I think that it will grow the way I want it to grow. So that's it for rose pruning today. I got 4 down back here. I have 1, 2, 3 more in the back garden, and then I think I have 6 or 7 in the front garden, so not a ton, but I'm just trying not to overdo it and, put too much pressure on myself to get it all done in one day. So over the next couple days, I will be working on that. Again, if you're interested in bare roots, if you want to plant roses this year, head to your garden center right now. I actually think I'm going to head to the garden center, not for roses, for some other things. It's a beautiful day today, and I'm not ready to go inside. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today.